Hey, I'm Nate Savage, and in this guitar lesson, I'm going to go over a fretboard navigation system with you called the 3-note per string system. And if you've been kind of stuck in box scale patterns, this is going to be great for you to start learning how to work your way up and down the fretboard. The focus of this lesson is going to be learning 7 mini scale patterns made up of 6 notes each. The cool thing about these patterns is that when you get them down individually, they're really predictable and really easy to string together and flow between to where you can navigate your way up and down the fretboard really easily. We're going to be in the key of C major for this lesson, but this will apply to any major scale. And the really cool part about this system of fretboard navigation is it applies not only to your major scales, but to all of your modes as well. What we'll do is go over the 7 scale shapes and get those under your fingers. Then I'll show you how to connect those up and down the fretboard. At the end of this lesson, I have a jam track for you that's going to make learning these little mini scale shapes and practicing them fun for you. Let's go ahead and get into the scale shapes. I mentioned that they're 6-note scale shapes, right? And they're also going to be on string pairs. So that means you can play these shapes on any 2 adjacent strings. For this lesson, we're going to be using the high B and E strings for our string pairs. Now, like I said, we're going to be in the key of C major, and the C major scale has 7 notes, and we're learning 7 scale patterns, right? So it might stand to reason for you, and it is true that each note in the C major scale has 1 pattern tied to it. So just real quick, I'm going to go over the C major scale on the B string real quick, starting on this C note on the 1st fret of that B. So you have C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then you're back to C, the octave. Each one of those notes in that scale are going to be our starting point for each one of these 7 patterns in order that we learn them. So 1 will be the C note, 2 will be the B note, and so on. Since we're in the key of C major, let's start on a C note right here to learn this first little mini pattern. So start on that C note with your 1st finger on the 1st fret of the B string. And here's the pattern. It's the same on both strings. You're going to skip 1 fret, middle finger is going to grab the 3rd fret. So then your 4th finger is going to skip another fret again and grab the 5th fret. So you have a fret in between each one of those 1st, 2nd, and 4th fingers, right? That's the pattern. And for this first little mini scale shape, it's the exact same thing on the next string over. So once you have that learned, you just do the exact same thing on the next string. So that's our first shape. Think about the 1 or the C root note as being your home base and just work on that. You could take a couple days or a week to get that down to where you really memorize it and have it under your fingers. Now we're going to shift up to the 2nd note on the scale, this B note, and the pattern obviously changes, right? We're still hitting all the notes in the key of C major, but we're starting on this B note and just playing 6 notes up from there. So index finger, 3rd fret, 3rd finger is going to grab the 5th fret, and your pinky is going to grab the 6th fret. That is the pattern on that B string, so play those 3 notes. Then you go over to the next string and play 3, 5, 7 with your 1st, 3rd, and 4th fingers. So you have this little shape on the B and this little shape on the high E. So memorize those, work on them individually if you need to. And then put them together. And if you're having trouble stretching, don't feel like you have to have your index finger glued back here to this 3rd fret. You can play that and then come off as soon as you play that next note. The 3rd little mini scale shape we need to learn starts on this E right here, the next note up in the scale, on the 5th fret of the B string. You're going to play that note, the very next fret up with your middle finger, and then you're going to skip a fret with your pinky right there and play the 8th fret. So 5, 6, 8 on the B string. And by the way, you can do this legato or you can pick every note too. It's really up to you. So 5, 6, 8. Next string over, you're gonna go 5, 7, 8. with your first, third, and fourth fingers. So that one feels a little bit different because you're playing 1, 2, 4, and then 1, 3, 4. So again, get each string down individually. Once you're comfortable with that, add the other one in. So work on getting that down by itself, just the B string. And then once you have that pattern down, add the other notes in on the high E string, right? The fourth scale shape starts off on the fourth note of the C major scale, which is an F right here on the 6th fret of the B string. And we're back to kind of our original pattern where we skip a fret in between each finger, your first, second, and fourth fingers right here. So you have 6, 8, and 10 with your first, second, and fourth fingers. And some people grab this with their third finger too. So get those notes down and then work on adding in the next 3 notes on the high E string, which will be 7, 8, 10 with your first, second, and fourth fingers. You know, ascend, descend throughout the scale shape until you get it down to where you don't even have to think about it. The 5th scale shape is kind of a bonus because it's the exact same shape that we started with down here on the C note, where we play 1, 3, and 5 with our first, third, and fourth fingers on both strings. It's the exact same shape, but instead of starting on the C, we're going to start on the 5th note of the C scale, which is a G right here. Exact same pattern. Mini pattern number 6 starts off on the A, next note of the scale, right here on the 10th fret of the B. And here's the pattern. It's the same for both strings. You're going to go first finger, third finger, fourth finger, and there's 1 fret skipped between your first and third fingers. So exact same thing on the next string too. So that one's really easy and nice and symmetrical for you. All right, you only have one little mini scale pattern left to memorize, and that's the 7th one, right? And it starts on this B note right here on the 12th fret of the B string, 1 octave higher than the open B, right? And the pattern is symmetrical. It's the same on both strings, so it'll be easy to memorize. It's just 1, 2, and 4. And you're going to skip a fret between your second and fourth fingers. So that's the pattern. And you're going to play that on both strings. And that leads us back around to where we started. You're back up to a C, so you can play your first scale shape again. Take your time learning these little 7 mini scale shapes. You don't have to learn them all during the course of this video or even all today. You know, take 1 a day or 1 a week and get to know them really well. The better you get to know them and the less you have to think about the actual shapes, the easier it'll be when you start connecting them up and down the fretboard. Now, the cool thing is once you have these patterns down and you know them really well, they're very predictable and very easy to connect up and down the fretboard. And what I mean by that is this. If you have pattern 1, start it anywhere on the fretboard. Pattern 2 is always going to be right next to it. You just go to the next note of the scale up and play pattern 2, right? And then you can go back to pattern 1 if you like. The idea is no matter what key you're in or where you're on the fretboard, what string pair you're on, these 2 patterns are always going to be next to each other. So take some time, work on connecting pattern 1 and 2 together, and then you can throw in pattern 3 if you like too, right? So. And you'll probably notice that there's a couple ways I'm connecting these little scale fragments too. The first one is a slide. And that's a really common way to do it too. You can do that with the first and second pattern. and even the third one too. Also, you can just make leaps too. So take these patterns, work on just the first and second one, get those down to where you normally will and can connect them, then add the third in. A week later or a couple days later, add the fourth one in, and so on. Let me give you an example of what this will sound like and look like once you get all 7 patterns connected on the high E and B strings. Now, the really powerful thing about this system for navigating the fretboard is it works on any 2 adjacent strings on the guitar, any string pair. So you can move all of these 7 shapes to any 2 strings on the guitar and navigate as freely up and down the fretboard as you can on the B and E string. So if I found a C on my low E string right here and started my first scale shape there, I could go to the second shape above it. I know exactly what shape is coming next because the order never changes. And the same thing, you can go up one more if you want. And you can work your way all the way up and down the string pair using just those 7 shapes. There is one little tricky part to this system for navigating your fretboard, and that's the G and B strings. Now, if you know how the guitar is tuned, you know that when you get to the B string, it's different than the rest of the guitar. So it still works, this system for navigating the fretboard, but you have to adjust your playing when you get to the B string. You have to shift everything up by 1 fret or 1/2 step, right? So if you have this C note right here on the G string, on the 5th fret of the G string, normally for this system of fretboard navigation, you would just play the normal scale shape, right? For the 1. Obviously that's not right. What you have to do is play the first 3 notes, then shift up 1 fret when you get to the B string to make everything fit. So it's the same pattern, you just have to visualize everything on the B string up 1/2 step. With a little bit of practice and some visualization powers, you'll get this down. So you can see how those are the same patterns. Everything's just skewed 1 fret when you get to the B string. Take your time with these scale shapes, really get them under your fingers. I have a jam track for you that's going to be fun for you to practice these. You can start out just by learning the 7 scale shapes, right? Then once you have those down, you can work on connecting them up and down the fretboard. And if you're more of an advanced player, just get creative with them, and you can even go across the strings this way with them too. Here's an example of how your practice time might sound. This lesson is just kind of an intro into using the 3-note per string system to navigate the fretboard. There's lots more about this in the guitar system. You can check that out if you like. Other than that, I hope this lesson has really opened some doors for you to start navigating up and down the fretboard instead of being stuck in a box shape. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to see more lessons like this in the future, just like the video or you can leave a comment too. That's always cool. I just launched a brand new guitar lesson series that you can get for free right now. Just go to guitarsystem.com/free-series and I'll see you there.